exactly now how to read time exactly. Okay, this point we are going to learn now. Now let's proceed further. I said your entire attention should be on the main screen. Nobody will be putting on their cameras and nobody will be responding to the chat box. So I'm showing you some clocks here. Now let's say this clock. This clock, if you observe this clock, then this is minute hand. Minute hand is exactly pointing out 12. Exactly. Right? Minute hand is exactly pointing out 12. Yes, if you observe this, you will come to know that this is shortest hand, that means this is hour hand. This is medium size hand, that means it is minute hand, and this is longest hand, which is called second hand. Right? So if you observe this clock, children, you will come to know that this clock, in this clock, the minute hand is pointing out exactly 12 here. Okay, and when the minute hand shows or points out exactly 12, at that time how we'll be reading the time? Okay, now here the minute hand is exactly pointing out 12 and our hand is exactly pointing out 8. Right? तो जब minute hand exactly 12 point out कर रहा है, that time we'll be reading this is 8 o'clock. This clock is showing time 8 o'clock. Exactly 8 o'clock. 8 o'clock. Yes, what is this time? This time is 8 o'clock. Why 8 o'clock? Because the minute hand is exactly pointing out 12. That's why. And this short hand, hour hand is exactly pointing out 8. So that is why we will be reading this time. This is 8 o'clock. This clock is showing time 8 o'clock. Get it? Got it? Okay, now let's proceed for the next clock. Now in this clock, in this clock, children, if you observe it, if you observe this clock, you also come to know that this clock, in this clock, this is hour hand and this is minute hand. Right? So in this clock, the minute hand is showing exactly 12. Minute hand is exactly showing 12. Right? So how we'll be reading this time? The time is 2 o'clock. The time is 2 o'clock because the hour hand is pointing out exactly 2 and minute hand is pointing out exactly 12. So that is why we'll be reading this time. The time is 2 o'clock. Yes. Now I'll be showing you more clocks here. Now here in this clock, children, you will see that minute hand and hour hand both are pointing out exactly 12. Minute hand and hour hand, both hands, they are on each other, right? And they both are pointing out exactly 12, this number, exactly 12, right? So what does it means? It means the time is 12 o'clock. clock. The time is 12 o'clock. Yes, children, getting my point? So जब मिनट हैंड 12 पॉइंट आउट कर रहा है, exactly 12, when the minute hand is pointing out exactly 12 and our hand is showing any number, our hand is showing any number of the clock, तो हमें जो our hand जो नंबर दिखा रहा है, our hand जो नंबर पे एग्जैक्टली है, हमें उस नंबर को टाइम के हिसाब से रीड करना है. As I said, in this clock, the minute hand is exactly pointing out 12 and our hand is on 2. So this time is 2 o'clock, right? Next, in this clock, the minute hand is pointing out 12 and shorthand, that is our hand, is exactly pointing out 8. So we'll be reading this time this way. The time is 8 o'clock. Getting my point, children? Now, I'll be showing you more images here. Please watch it. Now, in this clock, I'm talking about this left hand clock, left side clock. In this clock, if you observe the clock, you will come to know that in this clock, the minute hand is exactly pointing out 12, right? The minute hand is exactly pointing out 12 and shorthand, that is our hand, is exactly pointing out 10. So can you please tell me what is the time this clock is showing? What is the time this clock is showing, children? Please respond through the chat box now. What is the time this clock is showing? Minute hand is indicating 12. Our hand is exactly indicating 10. Then I said, when the minute hand is on 12 exactly, that time, which number the hour hand is indicating, we have to read with that time. Now, respond to the chat box. What is the time this clock is showing exactly? Respond to the chat box. I'm giving you some hints. This is the minute hand, which is indicating 12 exactly. This is hour hand, which is indicating 10. So you have to tell me that what is the time. You have to tell me what is the time. Please respond to the chat box. Yes, the time is 10 o'clock. Very nice, children. Very good. The answers are absolutely correct. Very nice. So the clock is showing 10 o'clock. Very nice. Excellent, children. 10 o'clock. Very good. Why 10 o'clock? Because the minute hand is exactly on 12. The minute hand is exactly pointing out 12 and our hand is pointing out 10. So when the minute hand is exactly on 12 and this hour hand is on any number, that time we have to read with that hour hand is showing, which is the number is showing our hand. We are supposed to read the time with that pointing number. Okay. Now this clock, I will not tell you any hint right now here. See what is the minute hand is indicating, what is the hour hand is indicating, and then tell me the time. Respond to the chat box. What is the time this clock is showing now? What is the time this clock is showing now? Respond through the chat box, children. What is the time this clock is showing? I hope you must have responded through the chat box. Yes, absolutely. Very nice, children. The time is 2 o'clock. The time is 2 o'clock. Very good. I'm receiving very few responses. It's a humble request to all the children. Please respond when the teachers are asking you questions. The time is 2 o'clock. Very nice. Now I'll be showing you another some clocks here. Okay. Now tell what this clock is showing. What time this clock is showing. I have circled over that clock. You have to respond to the chat box. What is the time the clock is showing, which is circled there? Respond through the chat box. Circled clock. What is the time the circled clock is showing? Respond to the chat box, children. Yes, absolutely. 9 o'clock. Kaustubh, it is not 2 o'clock. The circle clock is telling that it is 9 o'clock. Yes, very nice. Very good. Now let's proceed further, children. So now I'll be taking this clock. You'll be thinking that when the minute hand is exactly on 12, that time we learned that how to read the time. But now here, the minute hand has crossed 12, right? It is on exactly on 2. Minute hand has crossed 12. It is exactly on 2. Now, the hour hand is pointing out 10, right? And if you observe our hand has crossed this point, right? Our hand has crossed this point little bit. This point indicates 10 exactly, but now here this our hand has crossed little bit with this line, right? It has crossed, and the minute hand is also indicating that I'm on 2 number, right? So what will be reading it now? What this clock is telling us, yes, what this clock is telling us, that I have crossed 12 here. Minute hand has crossed 12. जब यहाँ पे रहता है और जब hour hand exactly 10 पे रहता है, then it is 10 o'clock. But now in this clock, this minute hand has crossed this length, right? तो वो कितना मिनट अभी आगे आ गया? 12 के आगे कितने मिनट्स आ गए? Can you please tell me? This is the 12th point, right? तो अभी 12 के आगे कितना आ गया है? कितने मिनट्स आगे आ गया है? Count the minutes there. Tell me. 12 के आगे मिनट हैंड कितने मिनट्स आगे आ चुका है? I want this answer. Respond to the chat box. This minute hand has crossed 12 and is pointing out 2 exactly. So how many minutes does this minute hand has gone up to the 12? कितने मिनट्स मिनट हैंड आगे आ चुका है 12 के. See there, if you count the minutes there, this is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 and 10. Yes. So 10 minutes minute hand आगे आ चुका है. Right? I hope you must have responded through the chat box. Yes, 10 minutes. 10 minutes आगे आ चुका है. Very nice. So 10 minutes आगे आ चुका है. That means 10 बजकर अभी और 10 मिनट हो चुके हैं. 10 बजकर और 10 मिनट हो चुके हैं. So how will be reading the time in this situation? How will be reading the time in this situation? How many minutes have crossed minute hand? It is 10 minutes, right? It is 10 minutes. So we'll be reading this way: 10 minutes past 10. 10 बजकर 10 मिनट हो चुके हैं, या फिर 10 बजने के बाद में और 10 मिनट हो चुके हैं. Okay, we'll be reading the time this way because what here 10 minutes has passed. When this minute hand would have on 12 exactly, so this is 10 o'clock, but now this has gone beyond 12. Minute hand has gone beyond till after the 10, right? So we'll be reading time this way. We'll be reading time this way. The time is 10 minutes past 10. 10 minutes past 10. 10 minutes past 10. Getting my point, children? I'll be giving one more example. Now in this clock, see the clock here? In this clock, this is the hour hand and this is minute hand, right? Now, if you observe this clock, you will come to know that the hour hand has crossed 1, मतलब एक बज चुका है, एक बज चुका है, and this minute hand has crossed 12 already, right? Has crossed 12 and is pointing out 5 here. So how many minutes have been crossed after 12? You have to observe it. Now see, count it. From 12 to 1, it is 5 minutes. From 1 to 2, again it is 5 minutes. From 2 to 3, it is 5 minutes. 3 to 4, 5 minutes. And 4 to 5, 5 minutes. That means after 12 point, how many minutes minute hand has gone? See, 5, 12 to 1, 5, 12 to 2, 10, 12 to 3, 15, 12 to 4, 20, and 12 to 5, 25. That means मिनट हैंड 1 बजने के बाद में 25 मिनट्स आगे आ चुका है. मिनट हैंड 1 बजने के बाद में 25 मिनट्स आगे आ चुका है. So how will be reading this clock? How will be reading this time? We'll be reading this time this way: 25 minutes past what? Past 1. 25 minutes past 1. This is the correct time. 25 minutes past 1. 1 बजकर और कितने मिनट हो चुके हैं? 25 minutes. So we'll be reading this time this way: 25 minutes past 1. Getting my point, children? Yes or no? Now, this clock, take this clock now. Now, read this time, children. Try to read it. Read the time here. This is hour hand and this is minute hand, right? This is hour hand and this is minute hand. Now you have to tell what is the time this clock is showing. Try to read it, don't worry. If you commit the mistakes, no problem. The hour hand is pointing out in middle of 9 and 10. The minute hand is pointing out 6, right? That means जो मिनट हैंड है 12 के आगे क्रॉस होकर 6 पर आ गया है. So what is the time this clock is showing? How we will be reading this time? Respond through the chat box. Respond to the chat box, children. What is the time does this clock is showing? Let me see. Yes, absolutely. 9:30, that means 30 minutes past 9. Yes, absolutely. This time is 30 minutes past 30 minutes past what, children? Past 9. 30 minutes past 9. This is the correct answer. Very nice. Okay, so we'll be watching more clocks here. We'll be learning more clocks. But before I proceed further, I would like to show you a video which will be telling us more about the clocks. Okay, so it's a humble request to all of you. Please watch the video very carefully and watch very carefully. Listen and watch it very, very carefully. Listen and watch it very carefully, children. Your entire attention should be on the screen.
As the clock chimed 12, the Princess Carrot suddenly turned into a huge pumpkin.
Wow! What happened next? Grandpa, why have you closed the book?
Jessie, it's 30 minutes past 10 o'clock. We must go to bed now.
But I wanted to know how the story ends.
No, Jessie. We will continue the story tomorrow. It's very late now. You should go to bed.
Okay, Grandpa. Hey, Grandpa, this is a fancy old clock, isn't it?
Oh, this one? Yes, indeed. My father bought this when I was a child. And it is still working fine.
Wow, it's really awesome. So looks like clocks were exactly the same even in my great-grandfather's time. Even this clock has a second hand, a minute hand and an hour hand.
Wow. You seem to know a lot about clocks. So tell me, Which is the fastest moving hand on the clock?
The second hand, Grandpa. It takes 60 seconds to go right around the clock, which is the same as 1 minute.
Aha! Yes! Now remind me again. Which one is the minute hand?
This one! It's the biggest hand on the clock. The minute hand makes one complete turn of the clock in 1 hour. It moves forward 1 division on the clock for every complete turn that the second hand makes.
Now, take a look at the clock face, JC. There are 12 numbers marked on it. It is divided into 60 small divisions. Each of these small divisions indicates 1 minute. When the minute hand moves from one number to another, it covers 5 minutes.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Yes, Grandpa!
When the minute hand takes one complete round across the 12 numbers, it completes 1 hour. Now, you know, each of the numbers have 5 minutes division between them. That means 12 multiplied by 5 minutes for each division makes 60 minutes.
Exactly, because 1 hour is equal to 60 minutes. But how do we tell the time, Grandpa? I know how to do it, but sometimes I get confused.
Okay, let's go over how to read time.
Cool!
How do you find out what hour it is?
I look at the hour hand and check what digit it is pointing to. Like right now, the hour hand is between 10 and 11. So the time is after 10 o'clock.
Yes, JC, exactly. Now, let's look at the minute hand. What digit is it pointing at?
8.
So, to know how many minutes past 10 o'clock it is, we need to find the number of divisions the minute hand has covered to reach the digit 8. Now, you tell me, JC, when the minute hand is at 8, then how many minutes have passed?
Well, it's 5 minutes, then 10 minutes, then 15 minutes, then 20 minutes. It's 40 minutes.
Exactly. So, when the hour hand is at 10 and the minute hand is at 8, the time is read as 40 minutes past 10 o'clock.
Great.
But you know what? Every time you are telling the time, you don't have to count like you just did. You can just multiply the digit the minute hand is at by 5, and you will have the minutes.
Multiply by 5. Oh, I get it. Because the minute hand has reached the 8th digit, and each digit is separated from the next by 5 divisions or minutes.
Exactly. Okay, JC. When the hour hand is at 8 and the minute hand is at 2, then how do you read it?
Okay, let me see. If the hour hand is at 8, so it's 8 o'clock. Now the minute hand is at 2. That means 10 minutes past 8 o'clock. Am I right, Grandpa?
Absolutely. Now, JC, if the hour hand is between 9 and 10 and the minute hand is at 10,
Okay, if the hour hand is between 9 and 10, the hour is 9 o'clock and the minute hand is at 10. So that means, the time is 50 minutes past 9 o'clock.
great. Now, let me tell you another way of telling time.
Sure, Grandpa.
Instead of reading time according to how many minutes have passed since the last hour, we can tell time according to how many minutes are left before the next hour begins.
Oh,
Yes. Now, 50 minutes past 9 o'clock can also be referred to as 10 minutes to 10 o'clock.
oh yeah.
Okay, Jesse. Now tell me, when the hour hand is at 11 and the minute hand is at 9, then how you will tell the time?
Alright, let's see. It would be 45 minutes past 11 o'clock. Or we can say 15 minutes to 12 o'clock.
Very good.
Right now the hour hand is at 11 and the minute's hand is at 2.
It's so late. Come on now. Go to bed, JC. Before the clock strikes 12 and you turn into a pumpkin.
Good night, Grandpa. Let me summarize all that I learnt about reading time. A clock has 3 hands. The second hand is the fastest moving hand. The hour hand is the short hand. The minute hand is the long hand. 1 hour is equal to 60 minutes. 1 minute is equal to 60 seconds. While reading time, look at the hour and minute hands. The hour hand specifies the hour. The number of minutes past the hour is the amount of divisions the minute hand has moved on the clock. There's a simple trick to find out how many minutes past the hour the time is. Just multiply the digit the minute hand is pointing to by 5.
Okay, so I hope children you must have watched the video very carefully. Yes. Did you understand the video, what it told us exactly? Yes, respond to the chat box, children. Did you understand what the video told us? Respond to the chat box, children. I am waiting for your responses.